Do you find that when you decide to change some habits, you have a lot of problems with that? You start off well, have great intentions, but it doesn't stick. Well, stick with me because this week I'm going to show you why that happens and how to change it. Hi, this is Grant Herbert, leadership and sustainable performance coach. And today I want to continue this conversation around performance by helping you to shift your behaviour for sustainable performance. Over the last few weeks, we've been talking about performance and going from this high performance mentality alone to a more sustainable model, being able to get more done without burning out. We talked about the neuroscience behind that, how the brain and body work together. And last week, we looked at 7 different areas that you need to focus on to have your brain in the best possible place it could be to give you that sustainability. So I know, because I'm a human being as well, that sometimes we get a lot of this information and we discard it. We go, well, that wouldn't work for me. And I hear this all the time from clients. You don't understand, Grant. It's different for me, or whatever it is. And I understand that the reason why you do that is because you don't know what else to do. You don't have a track record that says, I can change habits. And the reason why this is a lot of times what people do is they work in a dichotomy. I'm either here or I'm here. And I'm here to tell you that that doesn't work. It seems overwhelming and it doesn't seem like we're ever going to be able to get there because I've been doing this for so long. How do you expect me to go right to the other end of that spectrum? So what do you do instead? You make sure that by changing your behavior, you do it in an incremental way. You take little steps. You see, those hardwired connections that you have in your brain now, that conditioning that leads you to the behavior that happens instantaneously, happened over a period of time. You and your brain and body, which is a part of you, got used to doing it a certain way. Muscle memories are formed. And also the underlying psychology of what you think you need to do then validates that behavior. If you're operating in the performance trap, you'll behave in a certain way that means that you won't damage the possibility of you getting the approval you're looking for. If you feel like an imposter, you'll perform in a certain way and you'll do things and they'll become habits that are anchored in that negative psychology. So just like with every other area that I work with you on, it goes back to that identity, shifting that identity and building it up and challenging those limiting beliefs that you have and looking at yourself in a total different light. So then once you've done that, you can, and by the way, that happens over a period of time as well, you can then do things differently. You can then, because you're looking at things differently, try something new. So what I want to do to finish off this month's conversation around performance is to show you a model that helps you to rewire your brain. You know, we talked about the brain being this magnificent thing that's in your head. It has somewhere between 86 and 100 billion neurons, depending on who you're talking to, and they're all connected with neural pathways and synaptic connections, and it's chemicals and electrical, and it's all wonderful. And you can, through neuroplasticity, reconnect different neural pathways so that instead of going from where you would initially with a thought to a learned behavior in 1/250,000th of a second, you can build a new path that when this happens, you now do something different. So if you're looking at that in the context of your identity, as you shift those beliefs, what you make things mean, then you've built a different foundation for you to be able to move and behave in a different way. So the key thing, as I said, that you need to understand as we go into this is it's all about incremental change. The reason why I don't just teach my clients, I coach them as well, is because I need to give them those two elements, and that is support and accountability. That support is an environment, firstly, for them to be able to make that incremental change. And it gives them the resources and the tools and everything they need to make the change. It works on those limiting beliefs and all that psychology and builds a new and more positive psychology for them to operate from. And accountability gets them to remain accountable for the things that they say they're going to change. So incremental is the way to go. I'm here now. I want to go here. But more importantly, how do I get to here? How do I get to that first step? And what I love to do when I'm working with clients is to give them little things that may seem too small just so they can get a win. Because when you get a win, your brain says, this is good. We'll keep doing this. What do I do now? Take the next step. This is good. I'm really enjoying this. What do I now do? So that incremental building up of a new frame of reference about whatever it is that you're working on will empower you and push you forward. So just like everything else that I do these days, and I say these days because I was never such an organized person or someone who worked with models or procedures. I just did everything off the cuff. What I want to do is give you this model that I've put together. And it's a simple way of understanding how you utilize neuroplasticity to rewire your brain. Remembering, as I said, it's all about incremental change. So the first step is to recognize. Recognize is all about having a self-awareness that says, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm thinking. And being able to check in and look a little bit deeper as to why it is that you're behaving the way that you do. What has led you to building up that conditioning over time? Now, there are things that you can see yourself. And, we talked about months ago, the Johari window. And there's things that you can see, but there's things that you can't and others can see. But there's also things in the unconscious that you and others can't see. And that's where you need me to come and work with you to help you to get that awareness. But however you get it, you need to recognize the behaviors or the thoughts that are leading to the behaviors that's getting the result that you're currently getting. Step 2 then is to reject it. Now, this is where you need some support and some help, because what you're doing is rejecting the old beliefs. You're rejecting things that you think are keeping you safe, you think are giving you the results that you need. And that internal dialogue, that mini-me as I call it, is going to remind you that, hey, we do things this way because we're worried about this, that fear of not belonging, the fear of not being enough, the fear of not being loved, whatever it is. We need to please people. We need to be the best at this so that people like us. Whatever that psychology is, that dialogue is going to fight back. So unless you reject that behavior and realize and call it out for what it really is, that it's not giving you the results that you want, you'll never shift it. It's like in marketing, we talk about having those forces that work on your potential clients. And there are things that they want to move away from, the pains, the frustrations, and there's things they want to move towards, their wants and aspirations. So you've got to be able to utilize that for yourself and go, you know what? I'm not thinking that way anymore. I'm not operating and behaving that way anymore because it's not taking me where I want to go. Then and only then can we move to step 3. And that is to replace the thinking, replace the behavior. A lot of times over the years, I've worked with clients and they've wanted to give away something like smoking. So what we do, instead of just going, hey, just stop smoking, we look at why they do those things, why it is that they would take something into their body that they know is harming them. And we work on that psychology. On top of that, we look at, well, what could you do instead? So, for example, I've had many people that say, I get stressed and I go and have a cigarette. What could we do? Working on that stress is one thing, but what could you do instead? You could go downstairs just like you were to have that cigarette, but instead of having a cigarette, you could do something different. You could replace the behavior that you normally do. Now, I used to even get clients to cut up carrot sticks the same size as their cigarette so that they held it in their hand, and it wasn't such a big change in what they were doing. Instead of breathing in that smoke, they'd breathe in fresh air, take some deep breaths, whatever it is. And I'm not trying to get you to stop smoking. This is just an analogy, an example of how this works. But unless you actually replace the behavior with something that is going to give you the results you want, you'll go back to the old behavior really, really quickly. And then step 4 is to repeat the new thinking, repeat the new behavior. Your conditioning was built up already where you are today by a repetition of those same thoughts and behaviors. So now we've got a new behavior, and that new behavior then needs to be repeated over and over again. And by the way, you will slip back every now and then because that mini-me, that internal dialogue, is going to be in your ear. But incrementally over a period of time, step by step, you will change your habits. You will make what was holding you back into something that pushes you where you want to go. Now remember, you need to do this incrementally. So what I want you to do today is I want you to choose one thing. Going back through those 7 habits of brain optimization, what's one area that you could work on, that you could recognize is not getting you where you want to go? So therefore reject it, replace it with more resourceful behavior, and then repeat that over and over again. Having sustainable performance is so important to avoid burnout. I've been there, and I want you to take the advantage of working with me and my experience so that you don't need to go where I did. I'm still a work in progress, but I've gone from burnout to breakthrough. And I want you to be able to enjoy and have the energy to be whoever you need to be in every area of your life. Well, that's it from me for another week. And indeed, we're going to put performance down and move now into the next area with your career, and that is your positioning. I'll see you next week.